Alright, greetings adventurers and welcome to ADVinJapan. It has been a freaking long time since I put up a video, you guys. I do apologize. I've been very busy. The semester at the university has started, so I'm busy with my classes and just preparing all the materials for my students. But things are starting to kind of get into a groove now, so I think I'm going to start getting back to some videos here. I know a lot of you are also looking forward to my last Shikoku video. Those ones really take it out of me, so I need to make sure that I give myself enough time to sit down and really plan that out, and I just haven't had that time. So, but today this is a video that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, and that is because I think I'm done, you guys. I know that sounds crazy, but I think I am done with this bike. I have 55 different upgrades that I've done to this bike. I think I've done just about everything you possibly can to the bike except for exhaust modifications. I haven't done any exhaust modifications because, well, if you look at my exhaust, it looks like crap. Why would I want to put, you know, a muffler on there that's just going to get all banged up like that? So, and I'm not really concerned with the 1 or 2 horsepower increase or the looks. So just haven't done that, but pretty much everything else I have messed with on this bike. So if you are interested, you just purchased this bike, you're not quite sure what you want to upgrade, I'm going to go through everything here. This is going to probably be the most comprehensive upgrade video you have ever seen and probably will ever see, because again, I've compiled 55 different upgrades that I've done to the bike that I think have made this thing pretty much the ultimate adventure machine for me here in Japan. I will be sure to include links to as much of these things as I can. Where I don't put links, I will definitely make sure that, you know, they got the model number and where I purchased it from, brand, and all that stuff. I also have installation videos for a lot of the upgrades that I've done, some of the more sophisticated stuff. So I encourage you to run through the chapters and find what you want, and then click on those videos, and you can also get the installation for them as well too. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've got 55 different upgrades here. I'm going to have to use my phone because it's hard to keep track.
All right, if this is seeming a little bit overwhelming to you and you'd like something a little more compiled, maybe perhaps more in general what kind of upgrades I should do, I do have a video where I compiled the top 5 upgrades for the KTM390 based on a survey that I gave to Facebook users that ride the motorcycle. So definitely, if you're more interested in something like that, then go ahead and click the link. Or if you're more interested in specific brands, then let's go ahead and get back to the video.
I've basically organized this by drivetrain/controls, suspension, ergonomics. We've got protection and safety, intake and fuel system, electrical upgrades, miscellaneous, and gear and bags for the last part. Again, all in all total, I've got about 55 different upgrades that I've done. And I'm going to go over each one individually by those categories. So we're going to go ahead and start with the clutch mechanism first. So basically, if you don't know, if you haven't been following my channel, I was trying to see if I could upgrade the levers here, and I ended up breaking the clutch switch, which is underneath here. And the new one I got is actually designed, I believe, for a 2022 or a 2023. I'm not quite sure. But I was really surprised to find out that the new clutch switch is actually a lot more robust. It has a much better, in fact, I don't even know if there is a spring in the older one. But the newer one has a really robust spring inside of it. It's just a much better mechanism in my opinion. And some people have actually complained that the clutch switch is actually causing some of the stalling issues that happen on their bike. Now, it's not causing all the stalling issues that all y'all are having, but certainly some bikes do have that issue. When I broke my clutch switch, I was having stalling issues in first and second gear pretty bad. The next thing I did is I upgraded the one-finger clutch from AliExpress. So I upgraded the clutch arm down here. You can see this is a much longer clutch arm. It comes with a nice, clutch wire mount here too as well. So everything lines up And of course, the length, the extra length that this gives you, the longer arm, clutch arm that gives you, this gives you a slight mechanical advantage, and it makes pulling in the clutch lever up here a little bit easier. I still felt like that wasn't enough. And again, you know, if you guys follow my channel, you'll know that I basically, I struggle with some pretty bad tendonitis in my arms. 25 years of drumming will do that. And so I wanted to make sure I had even more butter smooth clutch operation. And so I went ahead and installed, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's basically sitting right here. This is called the Easy Clutch from ProSpec. And basically inside this little metal mechanism here, you've got a fulcrum inside there. So you've got the clutch wire that goes from the lever into this mechanism and then out of the mechanism into the clutch arm here. And it's got a little fulcrum on it. And having that fulcrum gives you, again, a further mechanical advantage. It's a really, really cool device. I super recommend you checking out ProSpec out of India. It's very cheap. But with that AliExpress one finger clutch and the ProSpec Easy Clutch, this thing is stupid easy. I mean, it's an actual true one finger clutch for somebody with tendonitis. So good, that's pretty much all the clutch stuff that I've done. Again, continuing with the drivetrain here. So this is an item that I added probably in the last year. I'm not quite sure if you can see that, but basically it's this little shift shaft supporter. This basically connects, let's see if we can get down here. This basically, what it does is it supports the shift shaft, and you know, it's not a huge upgrade that I would recommend, but if you're jamming your clutch in and out while you're riding off-road and stuff like that, it may be something to consider, because what it does is just basically it further supports, it shortens the length from this linkage here into the actual transmission in terms of what's being supported. And because it supports that little shift shaft that goes straight into the transmission there, it could actually probably help lengthen the life of the seal, the shift shaft seal that's in there, that I've heard some people say can go bad if you really are smashing that that clutch lever there. So I did that. Let's see the next one here, the shift peg here, you can see I went ahead and picked this up too. But anyways, this one is a little bit larger. I wear MX boots when I go riding. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether I'm on road or off-road, I always wear MX boots. So I wanted to have something with a little bit more length on it and a little bit beefier so that I could feel it with my MX boots. And then let's see here on the other side, you can see AliExpress. These are both from AliExpress, by the way. I do remember that this did not come with a spring, the stock one. Basically what this does is it does have a spring on it, so when the bike falls down, it'll bend up like that. And you know, there's tons of people out there who have got bent you know, brake pedals here. So that was one of the first things I did when I got this bike. Really a good upgrade. It's also a lot larger than the stock pedal, so again, having MX boots, it just makes it that much nicer to have that larger footprint. Okay, then going back to the drivetrain here. So I'm not going to pull this off, but I have replaced the front sprocket twice. The first one I replaced was the JT Sprocket 14 tooth. I didn't like the noise from that, so I went ahead and replaced that with the stock KTM 390 Duke. Not 390, sorry, it's the 250 Duke, which has a 14 tooth sprocket on the front. So I went ahead and replaced that. It's got a dampener inside of there, so the noise is highly reduced. And it just, yeah, for me, I just felt like it was less noise on the highway and whatnot. So yeah, put that in there. And then going back here, you can see the rear sprocket. I've went ahead and gone with the, I believe it's a 47 tooth rear sprocket over the 45 tooth. So this is the power parts. It comes straight from KTM Power Parts. So again, these drivetrain upgrades, basically what they do is by increasing the tooth count on the rear and decreasing it on the front, what you've done is you change the gear ratios to a much more aggressive ratio. That just gives you more torque, more power in the low end, and is much more suited for off-road. I don't think I'm losing any top speed, hardly at all. And I mean, it's very hardly noticeable. if it is. But the gain that you get in you know, the bumped up rev profile, I think is so much more worth it if you do any kind of off-road. Definitely recommend doing something like this. I would even recommend going even higher. I actually think this might be a 46 tooth. If you can go to 47 or 48, that would be even better for off-road. And then down here you can see I've got a chain guard that I just put on recently too as well. I just felt like I wanted to protect this chain. This is a new chain that I purchased. This is the DID chain. So when I did the rear sprocket, I went ahead and just replaced everything there. And this DID chain is an X-ring chain. It's pretty much virtually maintenance free. It's a great little chain here. The only thing you need to do is probably just spray a little bit of lube just to keep some of this rust off. You see I'm starting to get rust on this chain here a little bit. But the chain guard here I felt was a necessary purchase to protect the chain and also the rear sprocket too as well. So yeah, just a couple things that I've done to that. And then I believe the final drivetrain upgrade is inside the rear hub here. So what I've done in the rear hub is I've installed I believe it's a Ninja 250. I'm not quite sure. You can look again in the description. But I replaced the rear hub dampers inside there. And this one in particular for the Kawasaki is, it's a single unit, whereas the KTM stock ones are just individual. You have to put them all inside there. But this is a single cush drive unit, and it just kind of slips in there. And I feel like it offers a little bit tighter, like a tighter feel back there. And so far I haven't had to replace it, which means they lasted longer than my stock cush drive little dampeners. So again, something that I would definitely recommend there too. You can see I've got spools on here. I just put those on afterwards as well. So yeah, all right, I believe that's drivetrain and controls finished. So the next one is going to be suspension and ergonomics. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Pro Taper bar here. So this is the Pro Taper Evo, the stock KTM Pro Taper Evo bar. I put this on just recently actually, and there's a couple things that you need to know about this if you are going to consider doing this. So the first thing you need to understand is this does not dip up. It doesn't have as big of a dip as the stock bar, and because of that, if you don't give yourself a bar rise or anything like that, an extra bar rise, then you're going to find yourself sitting more forward than before. So this does not dip as much. I believe the Adventure bar does. So if you want to go with the Pro Taper Adventure bar, I believe that will give you that dip that you need. The other thing too is that this is a tapered bar. The KTM stock bar is a crazy size. It's totally not a normal size here. It's a normal size out here, but once it gets into here, it's a lot thinner than the average size bar. This one tapers into, I believe, like a 28 millimeter. I'm not quite sure, but it tapers into a really nice, fat, thick, you know, part of the bar here, which is good because it's going to prevent bending, like what happened in my last stock KTM bar. But what it also means is that anything that you're mounting on here, switches, in particularly the bark busters, you're going to have to purchase new. Especially if you bought all the bark buster mounting stuff for the stock KTM bar. I had to purchase all new stuff. I just went on Amazon. I believe I found these on Amazon somewhere, and just threw them on there. And somehow I was able to make them fit on the bark busters. So these are kind of universal, like, you know, universal little things here universal clamps that'll work with the bark busters. So those are the two things that you really need to make sure that you understand when you make an installation of this bar. It's a different size at the mounts here than the stock KTM bar. And so that's going to require you to also probably, you're going to have to remove the stock handlebar clamps, because those will not fit this. They will not fit this at all. Okay, so good. So the Pro Taper KTM Evo handlebar, 22 millimeter, 7/8 inch diameter, which again is much, much, much more common than what the stock KTM bar is. That's another reason why I decided to go with it, just because it's stronger. It's a lighter aluminum design too as well. Okay, so Because this has a less of a dip than the stock bar, I went ahead and increased my my bar risers here. Now, this is not quite legal here. I will have to probably remove these when I go get the vehicle inspected. But basically what I've done is I went from the original bar risers here, 3 centimeter, all the way up, and added these two as well from AliExpress. So I've got a huge bar rise here, probably close to maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 centimeters. It's pretty huge. So the bolts in there are pretty darn big. They don't go quite deep as the original bolts would have, but they get a good bite, probably about that much, I would say. They definitely go all the way through the thread that's offered here in the triple clamp, so there's no issues with that. Good. Okay, so next, ergonomics. Okay, so for ergonomics here, just a couple little comfort items that I've put in. So I went ahead and did the FX, which I believe is a Japanese brand. I'm not sure you can find these anywhere, but these are grip heaters. They're 5-stage grip heaters. They're all right. I would definitely recommend you guys probably just getting, if you're okay and you can handle just not having that feel, then probably gloves are better. They're going to do a better job at keeping your hands warm. But if you live in a really, really cold climate, I would probably recommend both. Just why not? Just double it up. I do like to feel everything that's happening here too, and I ride in the winter all the time, and I go off-road in the winter especially because all the brush and stuff like that is reduced, and it's easy access. Like, you can get into so many more places when it's winter here. In the summertime, everything's overgrown. It's almost impossible to get around. It's like a jungle. So I wanted to make sure that when I went off-road, that I had something to heat me up, but at the same time I didn't want to have to use gloves, so decided to go with that. They're great, really nice. And then after that, let's see here, the custom DIY seat. So I've got a video for that, you guys. I went ahead and cut into this seat, so I removed all this, this outer cover. I cut into it and I put in a polyurethane kind of memory foam inside there, just to make this a little bit more comfortable for me. I didn't want to change the ergonomics the way I was sitting on the bike, so I didn't want to purchase any new seat. I didn't want to do like a custom seat or anything like that because I liked where I was sitting at. So I went ahead and just did that on my own. I think it's a pretty good job. I don't even notice it anymore. I don't notice any pain down there. I mean, of course, if I'm riding like 4 hours, 5 hours, I don't care what kind of seat you're sitting on, you're going to start feeling pain. But it's pretty good. I think I did a pretty good job on it. In addition to that, I've got this little mesh little cover here. What this does is adds a little bit more cushion, but probably more importantly, it allows air to breathe under there. So in the summertime, it just prevents that monkey butt, or at least reduces monkey butt. Okay, next one are the knee grips. So I got these from AliExpress. These just pop on, just paste on here. I think I've cut them a little bit just to kind of fit them to where I wanted them. I kind of wanted a little bit up here too as well, especially when I'm doing more aggressive riding, but I didn't want to ruin the design there. And I feel like this is probably enough for me in terms of getting grip. Plus the riding pants that I use have a little bit of rubber grip on the inside of them too as well. So I can definitely catch here pretty good. All right, next thing are the adventurous foot pegs. These are from Motoren. These are one of the first purchases I made for this bike too as well, given that the KTM390 Adventure comes with angled pegs. More suited for like a street rider. These are absolutely fantastic. They have a huge footprint when compared to the stock, and I have not had any issues aside from this coming a little loose, but that was my fault as I didn't put any blue goo on them when I first installed them. So I've since done that. I think I put a crush spacer on here too, so just to make it even tighter in there to prevent this thing from falling off. This also does lower my position slightly when I'm riding, which is super important, especially when I'm using the MX boots, because it just makes it a lot easier for my foot to get underneath and do my shifting and all that stuff. So super highly recommend Motoren. Anything that they sell, these guys are absolutely solid. I love all their products. This is the version 1. There is a version 2 out right now. I'm not quite sure what it is, what it looks like, what's improved. I do think that one thing that I think I remember seeing that is improved is this angle is not so sharp. I think they smoothened that out. It's one thing I do complain is, you know, my boots will kind of just sit like that, kind of angled sometimes. So that's one thing I don't like about them. But other than that, they're freaking awesome. I absolutely love them. I put about 15,000 miles on these guys. Just perfect. No issues at all. Or sorry, 15,000 kilometers. Okay, next one are the fork extenders. This is probably the most recent upgrade that I've done. The fork extenders are from Nice CNC. You get these off of AliExpress. And basically what it does is it's going to raise you up. It's going to give you about 15 millimeters to the fork length. And what that'll do is give you close to about an inch of extra clearance down here at the bottom. You can see that the wheel obviously is just so much higher. The fender sits so much higher off the wheel there. I just love that aggressive look. It just looks so much better. Yeah, and I want to say probably the bike's going to breathe better too. It just doesn't feel so crowded back there with, you know, with the rear fender on there and the high fender kind of blocking out the radiator there. So I'm hoping it's probably going to breathe a little bit better. I haven't had any overheating issues like I did before, which I'll be talking about as soon as I get into the radiator guard there. But the fork extenders, definitely I recommend this upgrade. What it's done is it's really pushed me in a more upright position. And, you know, as I've mentioned several times already, I've got issues, you guys. I've got tendonitis issues, I've got neck issues, I've got sciatica, all this stuff. So it's really important for me to make sure that when I'm riding for a long period of time, that I can have that really relaxed position. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my wrists or anything like that. It just is super, super important. And this definitely helps me accomplish that. A couple things to note though, this is not for everyone. If you're a short rider, then definitely you do not want to be putting these on because you're going to be tiptoeing even more than you probably are, which can be quite dangerous, especially with such a heavy bike. The other thing too is that these it really depends on your height. I'm 179 centimeters, about 5'11", and this just puts the bike in a position right where I want it. So if you're right around where I'm at, then this is probably going to really improve your ergonomics. It's just going to give you a much more comfortable ride. It's going to give you more clearance for more aggressive riding off-road. You can just take a little bit more of a chance, not a huge, but a little bit more of a chance trying to clear certain objects than you did before. So really super awesome upgrade. These pop off, by the way, so you can still adjust the, you know, the rebound and all that stuff. So don't worry about this. This does not remove the ability to adjust the front suspension. You can still do that. You just pop them off, and they're waterproof, so they prevent water from going in there. The last thing you need to be concerned about when you do this install, as has been pointed out by several people, is that the lower triple clamp does not fully clamp onto the forks, and that's because these forks are actually tapered. And so right now at this point, I believe only the lower bolt is really clamping down, or maybe it's the upper one. I don't know. No, it's probably the lower one. The lower one I think is clamping down really good, and the upper one clamps down enough, but it's not quite enough to be like, you know, torqued. Well, I was able to torque it actually. I was able to torque it at spec. So I don't think it's a huge issue. This product has been out for years and years and years. Several people have made videos about it, and, you know, doing the install. ADVMatt himself has been running with fork extenders for years now, and he hasn't complained about anything. So I figured, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do it. So definitely recommend to do it. It's a quick install, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes when you include removing the front wheel and all that stuff. But it's a super simple install. Go over to ADVMatt for that too. I didn't make a video on it. Okay, I believe that is it for the ergonomics and suspension. Okay, so next is going to be safety and protection. So obviously one of the most important parts here. So the first, actually I believe the first thing that I purchased for this bike were the stock OEM crash bars, because in Japan they do not come with crash bars. And I cannot stress this enough, you guys. Just be really careful about what crash bars you purchase. If you're not going to get the stock OEM crash bars and you want some like frickin' roll cage for this thing, just be very aware of the material that you're purchasing. Do not purchase aluminum. aluminum, it just is not going to stand up. It will not stand up, number one. Number two, do not be fooled by the thickness of, the piping. Because while the pipe itself, the diameter of the pipe itself may be really thick, the lining itself, like the thickness of that steel, could be such that it's really, really skinny and it just bends like nobody's business. So just be very careful, really look into what you're purchasing. Make sure that the specs for that bar are very close to what the OEM crash bars are. I have fallen on these crash bars more times than I can possibly count, and I am not lying when I say that. And there's not a single bend in these, like hardly at all. Maybe millimeters of a bend. But these bars have hardly bent since I purchased them. I fall mainly on my left side, and you can see that these are virtually, position-wise, pretty much still in the same spot. So I cannot complain at all about these crash bars. Probably one of the best purchases if they don't come on your bike already. They're expensive, but they're worth it. The bumpers on here I just pick up from Amazon. You can get these things in like 8 packs for like $5. They're super cheap. But yeah, that's my setup there. The next is the Zana bash plate. I'm gonna come over here, show you guys this piece of junk. So this is the Zana bash plate. They designed it for the KTM390 Adventure. This is version number 1. And the mounting plates that came with it were, well, first of all, they're just really thin aluminum, just crap aluminum. And I bent those like within like 2 rides, just absolute garbage. So what I ended up doing is just trashing the mounting, because the plate itself is actually not that bad. It's like, I think it's like 4 millimeter aluminum here. And I've not had any cracks on it yet, but what I did is I put on the steel mount from the stock, the stock guard, and then I went around and just kind of drilled holes where the stock guard had screw points on it, and I've just basically done that. And this thing's pretty solid now. It does make a lot of noise, so I went to the hardware store and picked up some of these little rubber kind of dampeners, vibration dampeners, and just kind of put those in there. But the other day I saw somebody who put like these like insulation sticky pads like all throughout the whole thing. So it's like heat insulated and it's got like a sticky back to it, and you can like stick it all inside there. I thought that was pretty cool. So I may actually pull this thing off and do something like that. But there's not a whole lot of clearance under here with the exhaust, so I may not be able to do that. But in any case, it's not a really strong buy. It's probably one of the worst things I bought for this bike, but I didn't want to waste the plate itself, because the plate itself is pretty good. It's just the mounting is just absolute garbage. So they do have a version 2 out now. I don't know if that's changed or gotten any better, but from what I hear from my Indian friends, like the only thing people buy Zana are like, I believe like the rear rack and maybe the pannier racks, something like that. But they said never ever buy their engine guards. They're absolute garbage. All right, so the next one, let's see here. That'll go with the rad guard. So you guys can see in here, I hope you can see that. The radiator guard here is from AliExpress. It's a really cheap one, and if these you guys that don't follow my channel, you won't know that basically I had some serious overheating issues. I thought it was everything under the sun except for that. And what was happening is, you can see that these little slats here are large enough to allow kind of mud and debris to kind of build up on the radiator. And it built up so much, even though I use a pressure washer to wash this thing out, it built up to the point where the radiator guard was actually protecting the debris behind it, and it just continued to cake up and started overheating the bike. And I figured out that's what was causing it. So I'm not sure if you can see, but basically I've gone in and I've drilled tons of holes, tons of new holes, to let this thing air out a little bit better, and perhaps drain a little bit better with the mud and all that. So hoping that happens. Yes, I know, don't put in the comments that the high fender is causing all my problems. I understand that. I'm willing to sacrifice looks for function here. I love the look of this high fender. And if you want to do this too, just don't worry about it. I mean, you can do it. You just have to make sure that you really inspect the radiator guard. Just make sure that it's clean whenever you go out, before you go out on your rides. Next one is the headlight net brace. This is also an AliExpress item. You can see this right here. Basically what this does is it improves the connection between the headlamp here, this little headlamp that basically just clamps on with these 2 bolts right here. So this whole construction just kind of comes together as 2 pieces, and it clamps around the neck down here, and it's not really that strong. A lot of people complain about vibrations from the headlamp, and so what this does is it just increases the sturdiness, the durability of the connection of the headlight to the frame of the bike. It also, I think, helps protect some of this cordage down here too as well. Just kind of helps keep it behind this metal or this aluminum here, in case you get any rocks flying in there or anything like that. So it'll come 2 pieces. You'll get one on this side, and you'll get one on this side as well too. It's down inside here. That's a quick install. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. Next one are the brake reservoir guards. So I got one for the front brake up here, and then also down here for the rear brake. My next little upgrade, I think, in terms of doing some protection, is I may end up picking up the AliExpress radiator reservoir guard that kind of sits here. Basically, it has like a little hook. It'll hook around the frame here, and then it gets screwed into where the front sprocket cover is, and just kind of adds a little bit of protection there. Prevents that from getting cracked and broken, because if that cracks, you're screwed. You're not going anywhere. All right, next one. Let's see here. We got the double take mirrors. Double take mirrors were probably the second thing that I purchased, as my mirrors were either vibrating loose or getting hit loose all the time. So I went ahead and just picked these up. Great mirrors. They allow just enough bendage and movement that, you know, while you're riding, you can adjust the position. If they get hit, they don't undo the screw on there or anything like that. They just kind of move a little bit. These things have taken a beating, as you can see on the back side here. Just absolutely taken a beating, and I just haven't broke. The one thing I would say, I would preface that with though, is the ball mounts that come with the actual mount are absolute garbage. They come with like this sleeve, this rubber sleeve that goes over a hard, really hard ball mount. And that sleeve eventually wears off and it cracks, and then basically you don't get the tension that you need down here. So I went on Amazon and just picked these up. You can find them on Amazon, like ball mirror mounts, something like that. I can't remember what I searched, but these are much, much better. This is just a solid piece of rubber that hasn't cracked. I've had these probably on here for about 6,000, 7,000 kilometers. They haven't cracked. They've stayed really, really true to their shape. All right, good. Next one, the Barkbusters Storm Guards here. So again, this is probably one of the 3rd or 4th upgrades that I did on here. Love these things. They're absolutely fantastic. I like how big they are. They just provide that much protection, wind protection too as well in the winter time. So fantastic. The other little thing too is, you know, if you're concerned a little bit about looks, mine were starting to get scuffed up. So I just went ahead and took some sandpaper to it, and then I took a lighter and just kind of, you know, melted some of the plastic. I could have probably done some more buffing there to make it shinier, but I don't care. But I took a lot. I mean, these things were so badly scuffed up. So was able to make that look a little bit nicer. All right, the next is the windshield, the 790 windshield for the 390 Adventure. This is an AliExpress item. A lot of you guys have been wanting me to do a review on that. I'll do a real quick review right now. Is it my favorite look-wise? No. I mean, literally, long story short, I don't super duper like the look of it. I think it looks better than those stupid, you know, the other really dumb looking kind of GV knockoff from AliExpress. And then it looks way better. Like those people that put that massive Windflow GV, whatever it is, it just looks so horrible on this bike. And yeah, it works, but again, there is a little bit of you know, function that I am willing to sacrifice in order to make this bike look the way I want it to look. I do like this windshield the most out of all the windshields I own. The second one that I like is probably the Rally style windshield, which is the Raid Garage knockoff from AliExpress. And then the third one I like is just going stock, just going with the stock, and then maybe having like a windshield extender on top. But my testing so far, I think it's great. Just a couple things to note about this though is I've got a little pusher in here. It's probably about 15, maybe close to 18-degree pusher behind here that I made with just a piece of hard rubber. I just kind of cut this angle out. And so what that does is it makes this stick out a little bit. So I was, I had to put some little foam padding here. The foam padding also pushes the windshield. It puts some pressure on it so you don't get any vibrating. This is not touching anything. It's not vibrating anything. So that's something I probably would recommend you doing. Another thing too, I had a little Aussie friend that's so cool. Actually, I shouldn't say little. All you Aussies are freaking huge. He was such a cool guy, just a really awesome guy. And he went ahead and sent me some little rubber grommets that he had crafted for this windshield specifically, that basically, have a full rubber mount sitting between the screw and the plastic and the windshield itself. That just really prevents a lot of vibrating. It just was an awesome little addition. I had to drill the holes out a little bit to fit his little grommets, but it just works great. Yeah, it's perfect. So I do like it, guys. This little cut hole here is really nice. It's there for a reason, believe it or not. This actually reduces mid-body turbulence, like right around in this area. You would think that it would just be like, blah. But what's happening is you're getting a lot of air that's coming around the windshield itself, and it's coming around and causing buffeting, like right around the midsection. So if you're on a highway, sometimes you can get that jerk, especially if you get a good gust of wind. But what this does is it breaks up that turbulence, and it allows kind of a small wall to be formed around your midsection of your body. So definitely a good thing for highway driving, in my opinion, too. It doesn't come quite high enough, but you guys, I don't know, I'm 5'11", 179 centimeters, and I still haven't found the perfect windshield. I just haven't. It doesn't matter what you do. This bike, just go complain to a naked bike rider. That's all I have to say. Like, really, this whole thing about wind buffeting, it's not a huge thing in my opinion. It sucks, but you're never ever going to find a windshield that works. That JB Windflow, maybe it works, but it looks so freaking dumb on this bike. It just looks like a cone head. So I would never ever put that on here. No hate on you guys that own that. If you own it, great. Just whatever. Okay, yeah, the last part here is the headlight grille here, safety and protection. So I did get this from AliExpress quite some time ago. It's a pretty easy little system here. It basically screws in down to here, which I removed those because I crafted my own little mounting system up here. So you can see I got a little L bracket that basically holds this up. And then down here at the bottom, this is all held in essentially with, oh wait, no, I did. Yeah, I think I crafted my own little L brackets here because I think I lost them. But if you purchase this, it does come with its own little L brackets that mount down here, down at the bottom. So that's been great. I was told that you would have issues with brightness and that I may not pass the vehicle inspection, but I did, so I didn't have to take it off. So that was a good thing there for you guys that live in Japan. All right, I think that's it for safety and protection. The next part is the fuel intake system. This is where it starts to get interesting, folks. Okay, so let's go ahead. We need to start removing stuff here. This is a mosquito, anti-mosquito. It's so freaking hot. Well, not hot, but it's just humid, so you got a ton of mosquitoes out here today. Okay, so starting with the intake. So you cannot see it right now, but it is underneath here. I know you guys that follow me, you'll know that I used to have this little, this little kind of cover in here. I used to have it off. I put it back in because I was noticing a lot of dust that was kind of building up. I don't know what it is. There's something about just that little extra piece of plastic that just provides a little bit more of a seal in here and prevents dust from getting in. But you can't see it in here. You've got your snorkel, your intake snorkel. And back here, maybe if I pull this off, you can see it. Nope. Yeah, it's hard to see, but that little red in there you can see is a unifilter that I've put on there. It's just a little extra peace of mind knowing that, if any moisture gets back there or dust or dirt, that pre-filter is going to catch it at the snorkel as it's going into the intake. But that said, I don't have a lot of airflow coming in through here, and that is because airflow is like electricity. It just takes the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is very much so my lid air filter. This thing sucks in air like a Dyson vacuum. Well, sorry, Dyson vacuums suck. It sucks in air like mad crazy. So most of my airflow is coming from this. It's a DNA lid filter. It is noticeable. It certainly is noticeable when you install this on the bike. You just feel like the bike is breathing better. Okay, so that is next. The last thing for the intake is the Fuel X Lite. This is just kind of your air fuel mixture controller here. This bike comes pretty lean from the factory, so what the Fuel X Lite does is kind of adjusts that. It allows a little bit more fuel to be going into the engine, which actually helps improve the low end of the bike as well too. But in my opinion, I think the best combination here is the Fuel X Lite with this lid filter. You really see the Fuel X shine, and you really see this lid filter shine when you've got both of them installed at the same time. When they're installed separately, you can notice slight differences, but it's unbelievable. Unbelievable night and day when you've got both of these installed. Fuel X Lite really adjusts well with the increased airflow that goes in there. It just starts pumping fuel there. You may notice a little bit of a decrease in your fuel efficiency, obviously, especially if you're just goosing it. But I think it's worth it again. It's just totally up to you whether or not you want to do that. But if you're going to do a lid filter, you guys, I do need to preface it. You have to keep this thing clean. You've got to keep it clean. I'm cleaning this thing probably every few months. And that involves just taking it off, cleaning it with soap water, getting a brush in there, and then, you know, purchasing the oil filter oil, or the lid filter oil. I just use the K&M stuff, even though it's a DNA filter, and it works just fine. But once you start seeing that purple look right there is going away, that means you got a clogged filter and you better clean that up. The other thing too is when you're cleaning that, be sure to pull it off. When you pull it off, swipe your finger on the inside of the air intake box and make sure that you're not getting a whole lot of dust. If you are, then that means you probably need to replace the filter itself. They say these filters are good for like something like 30,000 kilometers. I don't know what it is. It's something crazy, but basically one filter, one bike is kind of what they say. But definitely swipe your finger on the inside of that air box and make sure that you're not getting, you know, any dust in there. All right, good. Next one, we're going to electrical upgrades. This is one of the more recent kind of huge projects that I did. So first thing is the fog lights here, the Daytona fog lights. These are sold in Japan, though I believe you can probably find some knockoffs here on Amazon, maybe eBay as well too. But yeah, just kind of threw these bad boys on here. I used to have them mounted down, but I recently fell, and I fell just right that it actually bent the mounts that I had created for this. So I flipped them up, turned them up. I still got enough visual on the lights here, so should be good to go. I do like that look better, actually, in my opinion, just kind of going up like that. The mount here I crafted myself. This is just a piece of metal with you know, that kind of corrosion resistant plating on it. I just basically bent it into shape. So I mean, you can go out there and spend money if you want, but I found it's just as good. I didn't want to wait for the shipping and all that stuff, so I just went to the hardware store and just bought one of those bars and bent it into shape, and it works. All right, next one is the quad lock. This is also recent. I just picked up the wireless charger. I've been using quad lock for quite some time, but I haven't had this wireless charger. So started using that. I also have the dampener on here too as well. So I don't know. I don't have any review for this, you guys. I haven't really used it quite yet. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work out. We'll see. I'm hoping it does the job. The big thing I was having before is that if it rained, and my phone, even though it was in a poncho, would still kind of slightly get wet, the USB-C input, and I just couldn't charge. The phone would just be like, don't plug that in. It just kept giving me that warning. So yeah, I know, I've gone through so much, you guys. I've gone through the CarPlay units, all that stuff, and I just don't feel like they're quite there in terms of usability. If I were to go with something like that, I'd probably go with like maybe a Garmin but not one of those CarPlay things. They're too clunky in my opinion. They're too limiting. I want to have access to my phone. I want to have access to all my apps, everything, just in case. So did that. Next one is the Daytona Power Distributor. This was my most recent project, you guys. This is the distributor right here. It's a power distributor. I wonder if I can pull it out. No, I can't. So what this is essentially, it allows me to plug in 6 separate auxiliary units. I've got 2 5-amp ones, and I've got 4 2-amp inputs on this thing. Now, to put that into perspective, most of the accessories on a bike are going to require no more than 5 amps. And the overwhelming majority, like a cell phone, or let's say like, you know, something like this, like a tire pressure monitor system, those are all going to take like 2 amps. This is super awesome because basically, you guys, what it does is, well, the first really good benefit to having one of these power distributors is it takes all those accessories and it puts it on the ignition. This thing is hooked up to the ignition, so you know that you're not going to have any type of parasitic bleed off the battery from any of those accessory units. I've had this happen, you guys. It's such a pain trying to figure out what is, you know, what's doing the parasitic bleed on your battery. So this really ensures that all the accessories that you've plugged into it are on the ignition, and that there's nothing happening when the bike is turned off. Really super recommend this. I've got this plugged into just about everything. I think I have 3 inputs left on this thing still after what I've put in here. So really recommend something like that. It's the Distributor D Unit Easy, model number 45865. A total of 20 amps on this thing. 20 freaking amps. I would have liked a little bit more, maybe like a 7.5 amp on this, like one of them. But I figured out that pretty much everything, even my fog lights are hooked up to this thing too, and they work off of 5 amps. They totally work. The other thing 5 amps that's hooked up is my my grips, my heated grips. So, and those are the 2 things that I was really worried about sucking off the battery. So I've got them hooked up into this power distributor, and it just gives you that peace of mind. And so this was kind of a part of a larger project that I was really interested in doing. This is gonna, if you are a gearhead or like an electronics geek, this is gonna freak you out, man. So you guys know I do a lot of YouTube rides, I do a lot of adventure rides, and I have had so much trouble with charging. I finally solved it with GV's USB tank bag hub. So you can see I've got a coax cable here that's basically coming inside here in my Endurostand bag. It's coming down here, and it's plugged all the way inside to my D unit. No, sorry, it's hooked up to the auxiliary that's hooked up to the ignition back here. Sorry, because unfortunately the USB hub in here is not, it's, I think it requires like 7 amps or 6 amps. In any case, you can see down here in my bag that I've got the unit itself right here. This is just that little USB hub unit. It comes with 3 USBs that are outputting full 2 amps, each one of those. Now I know you're like, well, dude, you've got one here. What about that? I'm telling you right now, I've seen people with like 4 USB inputs on their cigarette lighter, and it's like you're splitting 12 volts across all 4 of those. If you had all 4 of those working to charge camera batteries or whatever, your cell phone, it's going to take days to charge all that stuff. So what I wanted to do was have a dedicated unit that would charge 100%, offer 100% max speed charging out of each one of these USB inputs. So I'm getting 2 amps here, 2 amps here, and 2 amps here on this. So this is going to be the fastest amount of charging I could possibly get on this bike, unless I had this, I don't know, some massive, huge power distribution bank in there. But I don't want that. This is probably the smartest, smallest, most sleek way you can get this done. So if you do a lot of filming, requires a lot of cameras, you can see here I've got my Insta360, the X4 charges here, the Ace Pro charges here, and then I've got my drone batteries that charge here. If you do any type of filming and stuff like that, YouTubing, I definitely recommend picking up something like this. I don't know why they haven't upgraded this to like USB-C or some higher charging unit. This is actually fairly old. You can see there's an input here that says like BlackBerry. But it still gives you that 2 amps, which is still very much kind of the average amount of power that's coming out of a USB these days. Some of the 3.0 units and the PD power USB-Cs are putting out a lot more than that, but I figured this is pretty darn good for what I got on the go. It's going to charge all my batteries within hours as opposed to within days. It just takes forever. So this is removable, you guys. I can take this off, and you know, when I get into the hotel, I just basically just pull it off like that. I'm good to go, and I can go and do what I need to do. So super convenient. So that was the most recent thing that I did in terms of power upgrades. SAE connector. I recently put an SAE connector. You can see it's right here. So you know, if I have to, if I do need to, I can plug in. You know, I can plug in a you know, a compressor, like an air compressor that a friend has or something like that. Right now, I currently have it plugged into a USB, and this is for my my heated jacket. But it's also just a nice little auxiliary. It just kind of sits there. It's 2 amps. It's enough to actually, surprisingly, it is enough to actually heat my jacket both front and back with 2 amps. But also, it's a nice little 2 amp USB input. So if I need to charge something else, it's just kind of sitting there doing its thing. All right, next one is the cigarette lighter USB charger that everyone and their mom has. So, yep, just sitting there. Again, this is the PD style, so, you know, if I really need some fast charging or something, I can definitely use that and get the job done, probably the quickest. The next is the V-Peak OBD. Yeah, so this is kind of not really installed on the bike, but this is something I definitely recommend you guys picking up. This is the V-Peak OBD2 reader. It's a Bluetooth reader that'll hook up to your phone. You can basically run diagnostics on the bike on the go. So you will need to pick up this little Amazon adapter that will plug into your diagnostics port right here. Just that little red one there. Really cool little thing. I've had this in here all summer, like at 40 degrees, and it still works. So I just leave it in here. I've got it taped on there, so it's pretty much waterproof. I just leave it in here, and if I ever need it, I can go ahead and plug the bike in and figure out what you know, what codes are getting thrown and stuff like that. So just a little nice little thing to have, and it's cheap. I think it's like maybe 40 bucks, 45 bucks on Amazon. Okay, so another huge game-changing upgrade that I did is I upgraded the TFT ECU on my 2021 KTM390 Adventure. And when you do that, what it does is it gives you the ride modes. You can see here, so street, off-road. If you can get this done, it's definitely highly recommended. This is a huge game changer, especially for intermediate and beginner riders, as these electronics will definitely intervene and help keep your bike upright when you're not really feeling too good about it. So definitely, if you can get into a shop and have them upgrade, just do what you can to get it done, because it's a very highly recommended upgrade. Good. All right, so that is it for power. They're going to go to miscellaneous. Okay, so just kind of miscellaneous things here. The Polysport fender. This is actually purchased this from Polysport, but the mount itself is a DIY mount. If you want to see that, I do have a video for that. You can see how I put all that in there. Pretty simple, pretty easy, and I've had this for about probably 14,000 kilometers and it hasn't fallen off. So I did some little stickering here, some custom stickering, just to kind of make it look like it was actually stock part of the bike. So I got these little stickers, these decals, off of AliExpress. We'll see how long they last. You can already see the tip of that's already starting to come off. I did some stickering on the fender, and I did it wrong. I should have actually had this angled that way, but oh well. It is what it is. It's on there. I'm not going to mess with it. All right, next one is the tires. I just recently replaced my tires. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it with my neck, but I got to tell you, man, that bead breaker that I got from Amazon, I think it was like 20 bucks. It's just a little, you know, it's just a little mechanical advantage. It just pops it right off. It just made everything so easy. It was so much easier than I expected, and balancing it was not that hard either too. So on the front, I got Aniki Adventures. This is a tubeless tire with a tube in it. Because those of you that are following me will know that, yeah, I mean, I basically bashed my front wheel. I think it's on the other side, but basically part of the rim here is kind of sticking out this way, and it's just enough that a little bit of air does escape, but not enough to have the tire removed. I have had a mechanic look at it, and he's like, you're fine. It doesn't actually affect, like, the wheel itself, the bearings and all that stuff. Everything is fine. Don't worry about that. but just put a tube in there to keep the air. So I do have a tube inside there, and it works just fine. On the back here, I've got a Trail Max. This is a Dunlop Trail Max. It's not a Trail Max Missions. It's not any of that stuff. It's just a plain old Trail Max. I don't know where to buy this, you guys, to be honest, except for in Japan. I can give you a link, but this Trail Max in particular is a little bit different from the Missions that I think you guys get there in the States. I think it's a little bit more aggressive. I think this is probably more of a true 60-40. You know, 60% off-road, 40% on-road. I think. I mean, it's a huge difference over the TKC70. I'll just put it that way. It's frickin' night and day is what it is. Unbelievably night and day. So just giving these two a try. So I got a 50-50 tire in the front, and I got maybe a 60-40 on the back, and I'm hoping that this is gonna, you know, bump my off-road game up a little bit. You know, it's still out on there. The jury's still out on that one. I'll let you guys know definitely as I put more mileage on it. Okay, next one is kickstand pad. So yep, I got a kickstand pad. Again, one of the first things I ever bought down here. This thing is great. This is one of the first things you should get. It's just a no-brainer, especially if you have the fork extenders, as your bike is going to lean a lot more than than the stock one. So you're going to want to have something that's a little bit fatter. But this is great for when you're out in gravel or dirt or anything like that. It just gives you a larger footprint and prevents the, not entirely, but it just helps it helps prevent the kickstand from sinking into whatever you're trying to lean the bike on. Next one is the GPS mount. This is just AliExpress GPS mount. I've got about 4 of these things from different companies all over the place, and I keep going back to this one. It's just really, really simple. It comes with a very simple mounting screw in there, and it just, I mean, literally just goes right in. No issues, no problems at all. It gives you a ton of room up here to attach a bunch of things here. You know, I've got basically my Insta360 camera will just sit right there. Next one is the wireless TPS. So I picked up 2 of these. The first one I got was kind of shoddy. It was a USB plugged in into my, you know, cigarette lighter, and it just ended up quitting on me at some point. So I went ahead and went for a dedicated one that just wires into the ignition back there, and I've got it here on a nice little waterproof connector here, so I can remove that if I have to. The nice thing about this one in particular from AliExpress is it comes with a USB input, and I believe this is 2 amps. So I've essentially got my quad lock running off this thing right now, and because this is connected to the ignition, it just makes sure it ensures that my quad lock isn't running with the bike off. So fantastic, really just a no-brainer upgrade. They're very accurate too, very, very accurate in my opinion. I've stuck on my huge pump that is pretty accurate, and in terms of, you know, what this is reading, what that pump's reads is very, very similar. Maybe half bar off, maybe not even that. So pretty accurate. This thing has saved me several times, especially when I had that flat in Hokkaido and when I bashed my rim up. I was able to constantly monitor. It's got a little warning on there too. It warns you of low tire pressure, high tire pressure, and high temperature as well too. So a really, really cool upgrade, super cheap too. Next one is the kickstand bypass. This one is a little bit, I can't really, I mean, I can recommend it, but it is a safety issue. What a kickstand bypass does is it essentially bypasses the sensor down here, so that when you have the kickstand down, you can start the engine in first gear. So just be careful though, because what that means is that you could have the kickstand down and you take off with it down. I've done that so many times because I'm still trying to get used to this kickstand bypass. So there is a danger with that. So you might be wondering, well, why did you do that? Well, you know, it just prevents the kickstand, number one, from cutting the engine. So if like you're on a hill and you hit something and the kickstand gets pushed down just enough, because it only takes like, I think it only has to go down like that much and it'll kill the engine. And if you're on a hill or somewhere kind of tricky to get out of, that can be a huge pain in the butt, and it's happened to me before. So the other thing too is what it does is if you get damage to the sensor back here, then you're going to have to either jimmy rig something on there. Like if you've got a magnet with you, you can put the magnet back there and jimmy rig it. But your bike's dead. You're going to have to pretty much call somebody out there and get them. In fact, I don't even think this is a magnet sensor. I think it's actually a fully electronic sensor. So if that sensor goes bad for some reason, then you're basically screwed. So if you don't want to have it on there, I do recommend purchasing it anyways and having it in your toolkit, because if your kickstand sensor gets ruined and you're stuck out in the field, you can pop on that kickstand bypass and it'll get you out of the field at least. The kickstand bypass, by the way, sits right behind here. It's kind of actually sits center. It's really easy to install if you pull the tank off, but you can, if you really try, if you remove this plate here, and I believe behind there is the coil, I think maybe, you pull that off and then you can get your fingers in there and install that little bypass. I do have a video on that, so check that out if you want. Okay, next one is the engine casing bolts you've probably seen already. These are T6 billet 7075 aluminum engine casing bolts from AliExpress, and you're like, what are you doing putting AliExpress bolts on your engine? I know, you guys, I know. Well, first of all, this is nice CNC. These guys are pretty reliable by now. They've been putting out a ton of bike products for several years now. Why did I go with this? Well, I wanted to get free shipping on something else that I needed. I think it was actually the fork extenders. And so I just threw those in there and they gave me free shipping. So it pretty much kind of evened out. But these are actually pretty cool. All of us that do work on this bike know that these stock engine casing bolts are absolute cheese. The threads on them just go out so fast. So I just figured, why not? I'll give it a try. So what I did is, again, 7075 aluminum is not quite as strong as the steel screws that are on here, the stock ones that are on here, but they are much more rust corrosion preventative, and they just look cool. So and they're strong enough. I mean, this is the same aluminum that they use to put on airplane wings. So don't go in the comments and be like, well, you're gonna ruin your engine. It's plenty strong enough, you guys. These are plenty strong enough. But I wanted to make sure that the tensile, the strength of these was good enough. So what I did is I ran two of the shorter bolts on the oil filter cap here. And the reason why I decided to do the oil cap, test them on the oil cap and not the engine casing, is because if the screws failed, I wouldn't risk any engine damage, gaskets failing on me or anything like that. This is an high access area, and if it loses pressure, it's not going to be detrimental to the engine itself. So I tested these two shorter bolts on down here for, I'd say, probably about 2 months. And it was fine. I didn't get any leaks at all. So I just went ahead and pulled those off. And because these are really super high access, I wanted to use the steel ones, because you don't want to be pulling these things on and off. They're just going to lose their strength eventually. And so what I did is just eventually just kind of put them all on where they're supposed to go. So I think it looks pretty cool. It just kind of adds a nice little feature here. Be aware, if you do decide to go with these, they have a different torque than the OEM screws. And that is because this is a different material. It's not because, they can't stand up to the same type of tightness. It doesn't equal that the engine casing is not on here as tight as it should. What it means is that it doesn't require, to get the same amount, the OEM tightness that you need on this gasket, these screws don't require as much tension, as much torque as the stock screws. So it is a slightly lower torque. I believe it's 2 foot-pounds lighter torque on these than it is for the stock ones. You need to follow that, because if you don't, you're going to pop one of these heads off and you're going to have to drill in there, and you just don't want to do that. You don't want to be drilling into your engine casing. You could drill like straight through the casing, and then you're basically screwed. You've basically ruined your bike. So next one is the throttle lock. This is a really cool upgrade too. Definitely highly recommend this guy. The throttle lock, what it does is, it's kind of a misnomer, because it actually does not lock anything. There is nothing on here that locks your throttle. And I think that's where people get really scared and they go into the threads and they're like, you're gonna die. This is locking nothing. If you look over here, you can see there's a little pad inside there. It's friction based. So if I activate the throttle lock here, all it's doing is it's pushing against this little housing here, and the grip. That's all it's doing. So people say, well, it sucks on hills, you can't adjust it. It's like, well, yeah, you can. Just like that. Just a little adjustment here and there. these little teeny tiny fine adjustments will allow you to maintain speed. Like, well, you don't have to do that with a Viridian Cruise. Well, I'm not gonna hit on you guys. You know, I'm not gonna bash on you guys for picking up the Viridian Cruise. If you could afford it and you wanted to put it on your bike, great. And you do a lot of road miles, it certainly makes sense to have that. For me, I just felt this worked out, and I didn't want to pay like $600-700 for the Viridian Cruise. Half of which of that probably would have been just shipping alone, just to get it out here to Japan. So this works for me. It's freaking awesome. The one thing I would recommend though is, as soon as you get this, that comes with these really cheap little tape pads, tape for these pads. I recommend gluing this thing down with some seriously heat resistant industrial level glue, because that pad's just going to slide off. Anything past like 30 degrees and that thing's going to melt. It's going to slide right off. So I got some super heat resistant glue on there, and I've never had issues since. I've got a video on how to install that, because it can be tricky. You can actually end up pinching the throttle tube and it doesn't work correctly. I've had a couple people comment and say, like, dude, you saved me. I thought it was broken. You really don't need to put this thing down super, super tight. If you do, you'll actually end up crushing the throttle tube in there, and you may actually damage it. All right, next one is the 390 Adventure rack, which you can hardly see. So it's sitting right here. This is basically an AliExpress item. I think I got this thing used. It's great. It's got a bunch of mounting points if you look underneath there. So fantastic little item. I really like it. And as you can see, I've got my little box here mounted to it, which I'll talk about in a minute here. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get into the gears and the bags that I use. So I'm mainly Endurostan, as you can see here. I've got the Endurostan handlebar bag here. The Endurostan handlebar bag up here used to carry all my batteries and stuff, but now I use it to carry my drone. So I've fashioned out a kind of a little plastic insert just to protect the drone a little bit more. I've got little spare parts in there too, but this is great. It's the really freaking quick go bag for my drone. Just pop it out, launch it off my hand, and I'm good to go. The next thing here is my H4 bag, it's the H4 bag. I believe this thing is 4 liters, as it says. It just seems like it's so much more than 4 liters. I don't know why. It just seems like it's so much more, though. Typically, what I'll run in here, like my gloves, some extra pair of gloves, wallet, and all that stuff. I got my insurance documents all in there, too, as well. This has been fantastic for me. I've used this probably the longest out of anything. Next, I picked up some rackless panniers. These are the Endurostan Blizzard bags. This is the M size bag. If you buy anything larger than this, you're probably going to start hitting the exhaust. You may even start hitting your wheel if you don't have any racks behind them. So I picked these bad boys up. You're looking at about 18 liters, maybe 17 liters total, I think. I think it's like 8.5 liters per bag. I'm not quite sure, but something like that. But it's definitely enough to go camping for a couple days. Just great. I just leave them on here all the time because I've got tools in there. I've got just little emergency stuff, roadside things that I keep in there as well too. I also got the attachment to the for the fuel bag here. So I've got a 1 liter MSR fuel bottle that I stick in there when I go on my longer trips. And then on top of here, I stick on a Kriega. I think that's how you say it. I'm not quite sure. The Kriega bag, I got a US 30 liter, and then I got 2 US 10s that kind of sit on top of here and attach to that 30. You guys have all seen that setup if you follow my channel. It's basically how I roll when I go on my long adventures. The next thing is I got a Lycus Amazon case here. It's kind of a Pelican knockoff. These are great. You can lock them up. I've kind of fashioned mine out a couple times just to hold little electronic things here, mounts, stuff like that for my cameras. I devised like a little 2-layer system here where basically I've got, if I need to, I can store my drone, things like that, my controller back here too. So yeah, this thing's worked out pretty nice. I really like it. It's kept out water. It's waterproof, so you've got a nice little rubber sealing in there and all that stuff. Again, I've dropped the bike on this thing so many times and it's never popped loose. So just a really solid unit in my opinion. Let's see here. So, oh, I forgot to mention my pannier racks here. So this is DIY, obviously. You can see It's so easy, you guys. It's so simple. I got this idea off of a guy on that I follow on YouTube. Ferrari Ride, I think, is his channel. But anyways, yeah, he just went to the store and bought some little L brackets. And there's an existing screw here that holds all this plastic to the frame. And yeah, so that little L bracket, just that little L bracket right there, just helps keep everything where it needs to be. Just prevents it from hitting the wheel, it prevents it from hitting the exhaust, all that stuff. So just a perfect little cheap addition there. There's no need to add the extra weight from, you know, a proper rack system or anything like that. It does what it needs to do. All right, next one is, let's go to my tool bag roll. This is the AliExpress tool bag roll. Very, very cheap. I'll go ahead and undo it here. And it holds basically everything I need when it comes to you know, tools. I've got all the main kind of tools I need to get access to the, you know, the innards of the bike that go bad first. I've got some tape in there. I've got some extra bolts, some engine casing bolts, again, just in case if these things go bad, because I still don't trust them 100%. Tire spoons, you know, a little strap too, and just you know, various little things here that I think I may need. So this is a great little addition. I've dropped the bike on this so many times and it's still alive. So it's been rained on, it's been snowed on, sleeted on, everything. And it keeps everything relatively dry in there. The exterior will get wet, and sometimes it can transfer some of that moisture into the inside, but for the most part, it's kept my tools, as you can see, pretty darn dry and free of moisture. So great little addition there. I got these little extra straps that kind of hold it to the crash bar here, and also the frame back here. All right, next one, we're going to go to my flat tire kit on the other side. So this bag I actually pulled from my bicycle. I used to have this attached to my bicycle. So you just got little three Velcro straps, one here, and one here. Just keeps it kind of nice and snug in there. Inside here, I've got an extra tube for the front. I believe I've got a flat tire repair kit too for the rear, so I can plug anything if I get any holes back there. So good to go with that. And then finally, last but not least, are my camera mounting system that I've devised. So I use the Ulanzi, the Quick Go like click system, I believe it is. You can see up here with my 360 camera here, and I've got it also on my Ace Pro as well too. It just clicks in. It's so nice. Like, you can just click it in whenever you want. Like, you don't have to deal with these stupid little, you know, GoPro like twisty things. And I've got a little mount here as well too. I just got them all over the place. So I picked up a couple of these off of Amazon, and it's so quick go. Like, if you do any type of YouTubing, like, these things are so awesome. And I've dropped the bike on these things too as well, and really no issues with them. I've got one up there as well too. So just different various mounting points that I can really quickly access. And if you're really paranoid like me, I've also picked up these little keychain things with a steel wire. And you know, basically I've got this little hook that I have on here that's attached to the case. So if you're really paranoid, you know, you can do stuff like that. This will keep the you know, the camera from getting all jacked up. And you know, I've recorded with this cord, and it doesn't show up in the footage. It's so small that 360 the camera is able to basically you know, it doesn't show up at all. So yeah, it's just kind of a little system I devised after I lost my X3. It basically, a branch had sheared off the you know, the little selfie stick, and I don't know, somebody got lucky, I guess. They found it probably by now. In any case, you guys, that is it. This is probably the longest, most extensive video I've ever done. Put all my heart and soul into you know, these upgrades, and I really took some time to sit down and see what I've done to the bike and organize it in such a way that I think would be Really helpful for you guys. So if you really enjoy this video, you got any type of help from it at all, definitely like and subscribe. It helps bump the video up in the ranker and just makes this kind of information much more accessible to those of you that need it. All right, you guys. So again, be sure to check the description. I've got links. I've got descriptions of all these items in here. If you have any other questions, though, if I left anything out at all, then definitely let me know in the comments. All right, so I guess without further ado, and until next time, this is ADVinJapan, out.